Hello gamers! Welcome back to Ghibli-Craft. This is episode 2, so if you're new here, I recommend watching the first episode and announcement videos for a full explanation and update on what is going on. As for today, we're diving into some major progress with the world. First up is a giant wheat farm to use to fill up this wagon. We'll also be working on the farmer's house from Howl's Moving Castle, which will be our official starter home for this area. Additionally, I'm going to be doing a lot of terraforming this episode. This probably won't be anything permanent. My real goal is just to create a cleaner slate for builds in the future. But let's get cracking on this wheat field. This is about where I want to build the farmer's house, and I figure he'll have his field pretty close by. So I'm going to start planting about here and go that way and that way. With that, let's go! Now, I want this farm to be really expansive, like one of the ones that you would actually see in real-world England, for example. Hopefully, it'll fit right into the landscape once I start getting everything else put into place around it. Not too shabby, right? I know this thing is massive. It's unlikely I'll harvest all of it regularly, but it's more for aesthetic purposes than anything else. I want it to be kind of a centerpiece for the whole farming district, so it has to be big and really lush. You may also have noticed that this farm wasn't actually the only thing that I was working on during that time lapse. Even though I started with about 20 stacks of wheat seeds, I still had to wait for it to grow in order to harvest more, to plant more, and so forth and so on. In between, I busied myself doing some basic terraforming in the area, so here's a really quick compilation that's focusing more on what I was doing in the other places. As you can see, I mostly worked on filling in water and flattening the area. It's basically a big blank canvas right now, and that's really intentional. A bare foundation like this is going to really help me visualize exactly what I want to do with the space moving forward. For example, I can already tell you that I want my wheat field to be bigger, probably taking down a lot of these hills and continuing to expand far into the distance over here. So this is just the beginning, but it is definitely a start and we'll see where it takes us. So you can definitely expect a lot of change. In fact, depending on how things are evolving, I'll probably undo some of the work that I just did. But for now, this is what it's going to look like, and it gives me a solid base to work from. Actually, this is probably a good time to share my overall idea for the Ghibli-Craft world. Keep in mind, however, that this is very rough, and things are bound to change as I work. I'm going for a really organic build style in this world, where everything just sort of fits together naturally, even though I'm pulling inspiration from different Studio Ghibli movies. For example, I might build the house from Kiki's delivery service somewhat close to the rice fields and forest from My Neighbor Totoro. Or you'll see farming buildings from Totoro mixed in with Howl's Moving Castle. Things like that. It also means that I'll probably be moving stuff around kind of as needed, just to ensure that everything flows nicely. Let's take a quick gander at the entire Ghibli-Craft area for better reference. Here are some of my very initial thoughts. This area here will likely resemble Market Chipping from Howl's Moving Castle, with the river running alongside it, as well as Port Haven, which is the seaside village in the same movie. I don't have an ocean nearby, so I've kind of got to improvise. Other sources of inspiration for this area are likely to be Spirited Away, The Cat Returns, and When Marnie Was There. We'll probably incorporate some of the open markets and little shops, maybe a ship or two, and other elements to create a lively small town vibe. Over here, I'm sure you've surmised we'll be doing a lot of farming. I'll be adding a lot of farm-related buildings that will likely taper off into flower fields and or the waste from Howl's Moving Castle. On this side, however, we're going with a more My Neighbor Totoro country vibe with the rice fields, forests, and shrines. It may even expand into some mystical woods vibes from things like Princess Mononoke and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. And right now, my plan for this big center area will be more city-like, inspired by the larger cities in Studio Ghibli movies like Kingsbury, Kuriko, and Tokyo. So think grand buildings and big streets with lots of different things going on. Again, it's an extremely rough plan right now, but it does really help to have an idea of where things might be headed. All right, now that the wheat farm is done and we've looked at the layout of the land a little, it's time to finally build my new starter home. As I said, this is going to be the farmer's house from Howl's Moving Castle. You see it only briefly when the farmer tries to stop Sophie from going into the mountains alone. It's a pretty simple cottage, but I love the colors and I think that it'll fit in really nicely with this wheat field. So I've got to go back to my original base for all of the materials. To make the most out of this trip, I'm going to utilize some donkeys that I've been collecting. Let's see how much I can get transported back over here. Okay. I think I have everything I need, and I threw in a few bits and bobs that I might need for other things along the way. The build itself isn't too complicated, but it's definitely going to take me more time than the wagon from the last episode. So let's dive into a quick time lapse. And I'm done. I tried to stay as true to the source material as possible, and I think it's actually pretty close. I'd love to see your input in the comments though. Now that we have this farmhouse, I actually think that I want to move the wagon I built last episode. I told you stuff might change locations as we go, so this is a really good example of how things are definitely going to be shifting as I develop more of a vision for the world. Fortunately, this adjustment is just going to take a second, blink, and you'll miss it. And just like that, we've recreated the image from Howl's Moving Castle. I actually love the way that this has turned out. I'm really happy with it. Now all we have to do is load it up with the wheat that I've been harvesting. The last big thing that we're going to work on today is terraforming around the house and building a road like the one that we see in Howl's Moving Castle. These should help tie everything together and make the area feel more cohesive. Now, there's not a lot of reference material for around the house, only this one shot, so I'm going to take some creative liberties as I decorate around it. I've actually concepted a little bit of this in a creative world already. There is nothing around the backside of the cabin in the image that we can see, so I am just gonna throw a few bits and bobs back here. I don't know if this farmer does a lot with wool, but a loom looks nice, and I'm gonna do a little workstation here to go with it. Maybe we'll add some sheep in to the farm later as well. And then it will have a purpose. It is a little too crowded back here. I think I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of some of this dirt and make just a little bit more space. And table done. Let's move over to this side. Now this side is actually in the picture a little bit, but it is absolutely impossible to tell what is actually here. So I've thrown a few things together. It's just kind of a jumbly mess. It almost looks like the farmer just throws stuff off to the side, or maybe has some building projects that are underway and the things are just stored there or stuffed there to be used or not used at a later date. I don't like exactly the way that everything is just like lined up here, but again, that does really seem to kind of be what it is in the image. And so I'm gonna go with that. I do have a couple trapdoors here. I'm gonna put those, like maybe they're extra shutters that were leaning against the house at one point and then maybe just like kind of toppled over. I can see in the image that there is a table in the front. So I do have stuff to make that. Get rid of that string so we can get that in there. And so there is a table in the front, and that's gonna be our table. Overall, this looks pretty okay. I did leave the other side blank, some room to grow, and I'll probably adjust things more as I discover exactly what the farmer is doing. As we incorporate more things onto the farm, he will get more things around his house. As for the road, I put the materials that I needed aside earlier. Mostly we're looking at coarse dirt, some packed mud. I have a few brown mushroom blocks, even some muddy mangrove roots, and some spruce logs, as well as rooted dirt. Did I say rooted dirt? Anyway, these should help us recreate the look from the film. When building in Minecraft, mixing up textures is really key to making things look a lot more interesting. We did similar on the walls to the house, which I really like the way that they end up looking. And I did take a few liberties adding in the green moss. You can see green in the roof and on the walls in the picture, but it's not quite, oh, hello. I guess you've moved in. It's not quite as drastic as what we have created on the house in Minecraft. But I think it looks nicer, so we're gonna go with that. I think it'll make sense if we start around the wagon and then we can kind of create the road back there, curving around, and start the road up into the mountains as well. We probably won't get too far into that today, but it'll be a good start. And, you know, I'll probably do this as a quick time lapse. Now, the reason I chose the blocks that I did, I think that they match the image quite well, and using a combination of them is really going to help create kind of the rustic, uneven, and well-used look that we see in the movie. Oh my gosh. The villagers are taking over. You know this isn't your house, right? It's not. It's not your house. Huh, back at ya. Okay, so now that we have done a little bit of the road, I'm not exactly sure how far it's gonna go and what directions. I do know we're gonna need it to go into the city off in this direction. We're also gonna turn it over here and go off towards the market chipping area. But it at least creates a little bit of the atmosphere that I am going for, and I really like the colors. Now, real quick, I'm gonna go grab some of the other things. We're gonna do a little bit of terraforming around the house. Now, you may have noticed that I am not just using moss blocks. I also incorporated these green concrete blocks into the house as well. But I think that they add just one more element of color to the ground, and I really like that. I have a confession. So I absolutely hate naturally occurring grass in this game. I tend to remove so much grass when I play, but I do like to place my own, just very sparingly. I'm not a big grass person. I might add some flowers in here later, but I do like that it breaks things up a little bit. So this will be kind of what we're going for moving forward in the green kept areas. I do want to do a path, I think. Let's get just, I know this is very basic. I don't know it. There we go. Just a little walkway to the door. And with that, I think that concludes our building. It doesn't look too bad. I really love the way that the colors all go together. Everything's mixing in nicely. I am going to create a fence along here to divide the road and the wheat field. That'll come a little bit later, maybe next episode. I think the picture also has a fence on this side, which might work out well because then we can put some sort of animal off to the side here, have a little bit of a pen. And I definitely want to get a barn made next episode so that we've got a place to put all of those darn donkeys that I've been collecting. So that'll probably go somewhere back here. We'll probably put something over here as well, but definitely a barn next episode. I also realized that I need to do something with the interior. I'm not quite sure what this is gonna actually look like yet. In fact, I might do that between episodes and start by showing you what it looks like next time. With that, I think that we are gonna call it a day. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so that you don't miss episode 3. Thanks so much. This is Xenomom signing off.